This is like over 3 scenes, so 20 seconds.
Of course, you understand that the Kennedy assassination had a huge impact on me and our lives here. And she missed a little piece in the middle there when I left Irving. I got a job as a principal of a Quaker school. And I was there for 4 years. And I had been very active with Quakers, and that was influential in my having thought, it's a Cold War, what do? We're supposed to talk to our enemies. Let's try to communicate with Russians and so on. So I was busy doing that. But we'll get to that story in a minute. First, I'm going to tell you how I met this man, who called me one time and told me all the things he printed and his writing, and it was impressive. But he ended saying that he'd written a book about Clara, who was in the box when Lincoln was shot. And I thought, I don't want to go there. It's bad enough that I knew Lee Oswald at all. But we recovered from that. And then he wrote a book that's been very helpful. And how many of you had a chance to read Mrs. Payne's Garage? You've got work ahead. And there'll be a chance here to get some. It's so readable. And what surprised me,
the relationship with her evolved during that period.
Well, after this gathering at the house, I spent my time with her in the bedroom. She really didn't know English well enough to understand what people were saying to each other, and certainly couldn't talk and participate. So I had been trying to learn Russian. I've told people the Quakers got me into this because I was active in a young Quakers group nationally. And we were very concerned about the Cold War. Picture the time. Time of the Cold War, and the Quakers were saying, you know, you're supposed to talk to your enemies. You don't just turn them out. You try to understand. So I was interested in learning Russian and kind of trying to bridge some of the ideological space between us. So that's how I got into Russian. And of course, here was a native Russian speaker who could very kindly explain things to me in the language and teach me things. And so it was a very useful thing, helpful for me to have time with Marina. And after that initial meeting, I went and visited at their apartment where they were in the Oak Cliff area, is that right, of Dallas. And then one time when I went, you had to arrange ahead because you had to write to make a date to come over. There was no phone. They did not have a phone. They couldn't afford a phone. Picture that. And you hear all these people with little phones they carry.
You had a party line in those days, didn't you?
I had even in my nice and after passed on, but she described it as the Rosetta Stone to understand the attempt on the president, trying to kill the president, that knowing what was going on in his mind and how he plotted and did all the preparation for trying to shoot General Walker, said so much about his personality, his sense of being not recognized, and that he wanted to have notoriety, really. And this, I just thought this so she could be represented here too.
I think we have a picture of herself. Further down.
Yes. Thank you for sending it.
Yes.
Yeah. Confronted with this note, what is this? And had to explain that it was the note he wrote when he went out to try to shoot her. If that note had not been found, I don't think we ever would have found out, because she was not going to tell.
And yes, and if you had found out,
Yes, I still didn't know this note
would
was
have
about.
been very different things.
Yeah.
But November of 1963 comes, and you're a citizen, and you're grieving along with the rest of the country. In some ways, everybody, I mean, I was 12 at the time, but I remember the way people identified with the Kennedys were wrapped up with knowledge of the whole Klan, all of the different relationships and so forth. And you were a young mother with 2 children, as Mrs. Kennedy was, and you had the grief that everybody had, but at the same time, you had to go through the next year being the witness before the Warren Commission, whose testimony takes up more pages of the appendices, the 26 volumes of the report, than anybody else's. Yours is, you are number 1 by my counts. And that was because you had seen so much of the Oswalds and knew things about their moves and movements and so forth. I'm wondering...
and I believed in our free speech and the newspapers and publishing what's known. And I felt that at least, you know, what can I do to patch it out, make this less of such a tragedy? I can at least be open and tell people what I know and talk to the people who want to know. So that's basically what I did, and I was called to do that. Still, that goes on. I'm curious about when the balance of conspiracy theories to lone nut beliefs will balance, or will change. Right now, I think it's about 50-50. And I frankly don't like to talk to the people who think it was that it was a conspiracy of some sort. Complicated. What troubles me is, for instance, there's this new DVD out, Mrs. Payne's Garage and the Murder of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, the garage isn't in the title. I don't want to be associated. I think it's just Mrs. Payne and the assassination.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the murder of...
And the murder.
Yeah. And I asked him, you know, what do you think, what's your opinion about the attempt on Walker? And he says, well, I really don't think that happened. So that's how some of the people follow their stories. They just take what they want and leave the rest alone. And that's not good research.
Yeah, which is the way they pick and choose from the Warren Report.
Exactly.
You know, different facts.
Exactly.
And I think if I could tell in 2 minutes, I would tell. There's a...
And she basically said, they're nice old men, they'll be kind to you. Which I thought was nice, because that said something about how they had treated her. And she was reassuring me, because I was about to go to testify. And then in the fall of '64, she bought a house and invited me to come and see it and visit with the kids, and I did. And it was so sad to be together. The major thing we both had in common in our life was the assassination of Kennedy, and that was just too heavy a burden to the relationship. And so I didn't follow up and try to invite her. And I think that's worked for her too. She's left it behind as much as she can and raised 2 kids who are now grown. And so we stopped to pay our respects, a little donation to say that we cared. We're sorry that it happened. And I felt like, well, I can't explain it. A mob of people in Washington Mall to my children for the march, I could say, this happened because the people were hating and bombed the church. And my kids could see the hole in the roof. Yeah.
So, and then in New Orleans itself, you stopped because that's somewhere with Marina and Lee in New Orleans.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Got to where you were going.
Yeah.
I took get distracted.
And why were they in New Orleans?
Okay, well, he looked for a job in the spring, and I figured now I recognize that probably she urged him to go stay with relatives in New Orleans. He had been born there, he had an aunt there and family, and this was after he had shot Walker. She urged him to leave town, and he did. And when I came to visit them, well, skipping fast, I had visited in the spring and learned that they were going there. And they were wealthy enough to have a telephone. And they said he would send a letter when he had a place for them to come to. And I said, well, I could help get Marina and the 2 babies there.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, let them come and stay at my house while you go and look for a place for them. Because I have a phone. You could call when you're ready to have them come, and I'll drive them over to New Orleans. So I had visited New Orleans with them, and then
you had a very busy summer in 1963. Can you give us a detailed account of your, not a detailed account, but well, I could request that, but can you give us an account of your summer trips, including New Orleans? Because I think that that is a crucial thing.
It is. And crucial to understanding is that I was separated from Michael. I was bored to tears with home, you know, doing the diapers and not much else. And kids, I have lovely kids, and they're great people to talk to now, but they weren't that exciting.
Gotcha.
So I packed up station wagon, and we drove east, visiting people as we went. I visited with my co-clerk of the East-West Contact Committee of the Young Friends Committee of North America, which was planning an exchange of students, which we did. I wasn't part of that exchange, but I had helped plan it. But he called and wanted me to contact a man named John Act, who had acted as a lawyer for the Communist Party, the American Communist Party. And he gave me a phone number. This is Saturday, the day after the assassination. And so the phone rang, I dialed, I did as he asked, and rang up the phone, but nobody answered, which was not really a surprise.
But he was still willing to be helped by you a
Yes,
day
exactly.
after
Oh, yes.
he had upended your own life.
Yeah.
And I think I'll just end with one question. Fundamentally, as we look back